only way. I believe that the Jewish people has got to understand that if it doesn't do the kinds of things that I say, that the state of Israel itself faces the absolute apex of tragedy, and that is extinction.
First call for Rabbi Kahane is from Washington, D.C. Good evening.
Good evening. Rabbi?
Yes.
Good evening. We keep hearing in the media that the key to peace in the Middle East is the creation of an independent Palestinian state. My question is, if I remember my history correctly, from 1948 to 1967, I think the Arabs had total control of the territory in which they want to create a state. And they never created an independent state, nor did they attempt to create one, if my memory serves me. What does that, if my facts are correct, what does that tell you about Arab intentions?
Well, your facts are correct. And what it says is that the same Arabs who in 1947 turned down the UN plan, which would have given them a state, are not interested in just that. They truly believe, and let's give them credit for that, they believe that the entire country belongs to them. They believe that Israel has no right to exist. They believe that the entire area is called Palestine. By giving up what they once had, and they went to war, even though they had that, you will not bring peace. You will simply whet the appetite of Arabs who will then move on to the next phase, and that is, having gotten back the lands of 1967, let's get back the lands of 1947, which means wiping out Israel.
Durham, North Carolina, you're next. Good evening.
Hello, hi. Hello, Rabbi.
Yes.
I would like to ask you, I'm originally from Brooklyn, and followed your career and admired you for many years. And I was wondering, why do you think that in the United States there is an absolute obsession with what's going on the West Bank? I don't know how often you're in the States now, but there is certainly much more play of that story, with the injuries and casualties being nothing compared to other spots in the world, but yet it's a daily barrage of coverage on this story. And I was wondering what you thought the reason was, and if you think Israel can do anything to change that.
Thanks, North Carolina.
I think you're very, very right. Just 3 weeks ago, in Lebanon, you had a horrible massacre. 3 days of massacres between Shiites and Shiites. Over 180 Shiites were just massacred. I mean, with hatchets and knives in 3 days. I'm sure that over here, no great deal was made over that. In Algeria, just recently, a few months ago, there was rioting. The Algerian army went and killed 500 people. I don't recall anybody shouting, screaming, demonstrating. The Syrians, some years back, in Homs, killed in one day 15,000 of their own people. Now the question is, why do they make a big deal over Israel? Well, they may tell you that they expect Israel to be better. I think that's balderdash. I think that there's a tremendous amount of hostility towards Israel. It's a hidden kind of a thing. In fact, I think that in this country there's a tremendous amount of anti-Semitism, which, for various reasons, has been kept down. First of all, because the economic times have been good, and when times are basically good, people hate Jews quietly. I think that Israel, and especially the Six-Day War, gave the anti-Semites an opportunity to cut this albatross of guilt over the Holocaust away. And I think that with every passing decade, it's become worse and worse and worse. What I would suggest to you is, don't be worried about it, and don't be bothered about it. CBS is not going to decide the fate of Israel. Don't be worried about it. The fate of Israel will be decided by the Jewish people doing that which God wants and which is good for Israel. So don't be upset.
I've read where you have expelled German and Austrian correspondents from news conferences that you've held. Is that true?
We have a clear rule that anyone who represents the German state radio or state TV cannot appear at my conferences.
Why is that?
I don't merely throw out people. If I were to throw out every news person in Israel whom I thought was hostile, we'd have an empty room. That's not the point. I think that what the German people did to the Jews is not a thing that one overlooks easily. Now, I'll certainly have coffee with the same German personally on a personal level, but as long as he represents the German state, 45 years is too short a time to forget. And I think that one of the problems of people in this country is when they say, well, let's forget. I think that people who don't hate evil enough guarantee that it will happen again and again. So indeed, no official representative of German state TV or state radio can appear at any of our press conferences.
We have reserved a phone line for our international viewers who are watching us on WorldNet tonight. And if you'd like to join us, you can dial this phone number, 202-737-6734. That phone number at the bottom of your screen, again, reserved only for our viewers watching us around the world on WorldNet. Let's go next to Los Angeles. Good evening.
Hi. Rabbi Kahane, do
Yes.
you believe that since Muslims are also descendants of Abraham, that they also have a right to the land?
I think that if you're going to speak about the Bible, if you want to raise the argument of the Bible, then one has to follow the Bible. And in Genesis chapter 17, where God tells Abraham that he will certainly make a mighty nation out of Ishmael, who is the father of the Arabs, but the covenant, the land, shall he give to Isaac. So if you want to use Bible, which is fine, I mean, I'm all for that, but use it, and don't take it out of context. The Arab peoples have 22 countries, and I don't mind that. I don't begrudge them any of them. The Jewish people has nothing except Israel, and on that there's no compromise at all.
Northampton, Massachusetts, go ahead.
Yes, Mayor Kahane, I wanted to say that I'm an evangelical Christian, and for many years we've been well aware that the State Department is not serving the interests of this country or Israel. And they are extremely unsympathetic to your cause. And I was just wondering if you had any comments to make concerning the general attitude of the State Department toward Arab-Israeli relations and U.S.-Israeli relations.
Well, I mean, there is no question that they've been hostile ever since Israel came into being. When Harry Truman wanted to recognize Israel, they certainly fought him. But again, that doesn't bother me. I think that one of the problems, if you're speaking as a Christian, as born-again Christian, I think that it has to be made clear that the State Department or the President or Congress were not created to do what is good for Israel. They were created to do what's good for America. It's important, however, for a Christian to think in Christian terms. That when God said to Abraham, those that bless thee shall be blessed, and those that curse thee shall be cursed, what is really being said is that what is good for America is to support Israel. But not because it's good for Israel, but because it's good for America.
Alexandria, Virginia, go ahead.
Hi. I would like to ask Rabbi Kahane about his suggestion to transfer the Arabs out of the West Bank. Obviously, the transfer will be done by force, because obviously the people of the West Bank are not going to leave from their own will. Don't you think that, one, you are amplifying even more the problem of the Middle East and taking the chances of peace out, And second, don't you think that expelling people from their homes go against the heart of the teachings of the Jewish religion?
Sir, when you say that if I were to do that, it would harm peace, or it would cause greater friction between Jews and Arabs, let me make one thing clear to you. I did not start the 1948 war.